Hello, everyone. Welcome to Storycraft Conversations. It's a free author interview series for people who love to read and people who love to write. Our guest today is Sara Cassidy. She is the author of over 20 books for children and teens, and she writes also poetry and prose and essays and verse. So multi-talented. I'm going to see if I can pull up my little slideshow here. Everyone see that? So there she is with all her books and some of her awards. I'm sorry, Sarah, how do you pronounce that? Kinoki Bunny?
Kanoichi.
Kanoichi
Kanoichi?
Bunny.
Yeah.
Kanoichi Bunny was a New York Public Library Award finalist. The Moon is a Silver Pond. That's a title. I just love that title.
Hmm.
Was the Air and Space Smithsonian Book of the Year. How did that come to pass? Did they pick it or did they?
I don't. There, moon. I have.
Moon, the Moon Fit. Helen's Birds, which is a graphic book, which I want to talk about, is a Globe and Mail Best Book of the Year. And then we have A Boy Named Queen, which was a finalist for the Ruth and Sylvia Sports Children's Book Award, Manitoba Young Reader's Choice, the Diamond Willow Award. Nevers, which was a finalist for the Governor General's Award and finalist for the BC Book Prize. We have The Secret Office, which a recent reviewer says definitely adapts the quest theme to the contemporary small setting, quiet but absorbing. I love this book. Genius Jolene won the Sheila A. Eggoff Children's Literature Prize. That's the BC Book Prize, part of the BC Book Prizes. And then she has many other books. These are books for more for teens, Skylark, Slick, Union. And Union is, oh, sorry, Skylark is the, Union is the verse, right?
Yes.
Verse?
Oh, and yeah, Skylark is
That's,
about poetry and is kind of lyrical. Yeah, it's about
oh,
Skylark is about slam poetry.
so cool. I love the cover. It says it all. And then Slick has a very much an environmental story to it. And I think, yeah, they're all beautifully done.
Mm.
And then we have Scallywags of the Sailor She, which I loved, Seeing Orange, Great Guglielmi, just all really wonderful, inventive books that I hope people get a chance to read just for fun for themselves or for any kids in their life as well.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Great.
as usual, we're going to start the interview. And if anyone has questions, please write question in all caps and put it in the chat. And then April and I will help field them after we go through these questions. Right. Sarah. So to write for children, you have to kind of get into the mind of a child, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of top tip for us or any kind of insights about that? Like, how do you think to yourself, okay, because with adults, you're like, well, you get it, you don't, too bad for you, you know? But you can't do that with children.
That's right. In a way, you have to, yeah, there's a way to lure them in and keep them there and in the book. But I mean, it's also a question about how they approach a book, and it's very different, I think, to how we do, in the sense that if you think of the progress of time in a child's life, it's really one thing to the next to the next. I mean, it can veer sideways and everything, but it's not in any way to say that it's straight ahead. But so a book isn't squeezed in a way as it is for us, or we don't know it's now I have a chance to read. There's nothing on the other side, so it's a good thing to think of like that. The closest I think we can come is like at the start of a long trip where you can afford to not think about the end and you're finally just released. And or starting an afternoon of gardening and you don't know really, you know that you're going to go deep, you're going to feel the elements, but as a child you already are, honestly. When you pick up the book itself, it's a physical thing, and the day
Right.
itself has been wonderful. You've just come home from baseball practice and pick up the book and in you go. And it's just the next thing. So, the next great progress in on the path of childhood is the book. So, yeah, you want it to be welcoming and embracing and huge and to be aware of them. But so as for writing for a child in a way that we can get into their minds, the top tip is definitely to use the senses.
Mm,
So, and that's imagery through imagery, and that's all types of imagery. So, visual imagery like a faded red tablecloth,
mm,
auditory, hearing the crack of a bat, a
mhm,
ringing bell, um, gustatory taste. So
Mm-hmm.
like the spinach salad's copper tang, olfactory smelling. The room smelled of this one in particular, actually, dust and onions. Kinesthetic, how you feel. There's two ways of this. Feeling is like I was just petting a cat and its fur was like pebbled with mites.
Oh.
Um, but there's also another kind of kinesthetic imagery, which is like inside. So, she was so dizzy, she felt like she was gonna
Mm-hmm.
barf, right? So there's this kind of, but what's happening there is the kid is right there with you, and each image is a kind of tile where it's especially important for younger readers. You just keep them feeling and being there and feeling what the character is feeling or being where the character is. And it's just a way to hold them and give them a place in the story. And then there's the next tile is the next image, and then they're moving along through the story. And it's definitely tacking them down. It's an odd way to put it, but so it's holding their attentions and them. It's by keeping their senses engaged. And I got a teeny, tiny, little activity for later that kind of
Oh, awesome.
looks at that. So, and then in terms of language, the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. You want to go with concrete nouns as opposed to abstract nouns, especially for the younger. As you get older, you can get a little more abstract and lift off a little bit. But concrete, like solid nouns that evoke images, like telephone, carpet, um, table, airplane. Like they all evoke not just this visual, but the sounds and what
Right.
those things mean. And so like words like trust, respect, fear, even fear, they don't have a lot of value because the meaning isn't there yet for kids. Like you really have to
Interesting.
reveal that stuff between the lines, between the concrete and the concrete language and the imagery. So there's a lot going on between the lines in writing for children, I'd say. So after imagery, there's also diction, of course, which is the juicy words. And choosing, yeah, really fun, juicy words, powerful words, whatever. That's key as well. Um, and I'm not, there's of course there's also, mystery and surprising events or cliffhangers and things like that. And excitement. I'm never been much of a plot-oriented person. I'm more interested in the sentence and the experience of reading and locating a child in place and sensation and in another world, in this other world. And that's more interesting to me. And I'm grateful to be able to nurture that.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's very useful.
Mhm.
Uh, the senses, yeah, I guess because when you're a kid, like I remember my childhood through that sense is how something tasted. Oh my God, it tasted so good, or it smelled and everything else. So that really makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And they can be there right with, yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your latest book is called Star Sailor: The Sea of Words, which is a great title. It's nonfiction, right? And it's aimed for fourth to sixth graders, and it's basically tells the origins of words, right? Some of the words
Yes.
that we love.
That's right.
Is
Yeah.
there a couple of favorite words from that book? There was words that surprised you, and is there any words that we need that?
Yeah.
I guess is always the
Um,
question. Yeah, we need to have words
I
for.
love I love this question. It's great. And I'm off, you do get asked what's your favorite word, and I
Mm.
always say hod.
Hod?
Yeah, because people think it's going to be something long and extravagant and
Yeah.
sumptuous, like viticulture or
Mm.
palimpsest or I don't know,
Yeah.
deleterious. But I choose hod, and that's the shelf that masons carry their bricks on. The one I think of is another hod that's for carrying coal,
Okay.
like a basket of sorts.
Okay.
And I love it because it's such a humble word and it's so extremely durable. And it's been traveling through time, through English,
Mhm.
like the word worm or love for centuries. So they're like strong pebbles that have survived and they continue. And actually, I like breathing life into the word hod because it's getting used less and less. So every time I use
I
it,
haven't ever you have never used that word, but I'm going to.
thank you.
Is that in the book?
It's not in the book.
Okay.
So, but what is in the book is these words that are so simple and how they have worn down through time. So like periwig is in the periwig, yes,
There
and
we
how
go.
it became wig and how so it's and goodbye and how that's a contraction that evolved over, I don't know how long, but 100 years, let's say, from God be with you to goodbye. So that's
Yeah.
in the book is how words do become compressed over time a little bit. So
Mhm.
like and the book has the subtitle, The Story of Words. And that's what I really wanted to share with kids is that stories are made of words, yes, but words also contain stories. Like my sister says, a word is a suitcase. You crack
Yeah.
it open, it's rich with content. And Milan Kundera
Mhm.
says that there's no such thing as synonyms. And even though his writing doesn't grab me, this thing he said does grab me. And what he's
Interesting.
saying there is,
Yeah.
every word is shaped by its history and where it comes from, what it's done, and where it's, what kind of it's collected. So you've got denotative meanings for words like dictionary
Mhm.
definitions, and yeah, sure, house and domicile mean the same, we could say.
Yeah.
But of course,
Mm.
home, okay, house and home, then they're
Yeah.
quite, you could say they mean the same, but they don't. We know that the
Yeah.
connotation is different, so the connotative meaning. And like with house and domicile, if you do look at them closely, domicile comes from Latinate, and I mean, I can get into all that, and the Anglo-Saxon versus the Latinate language that came through the French. So they're actually, that word is packed with why we use it in English. It's because the Normans invaded
Yeah.
England and stuck us with a whole bunch of terrible Latinate words. So this
Okay.
is that in the book I look at, things like the things we learn like onomatopoeia, like the sources of words. And we've always, I don't know why we're told that onomatopoeia, we're taught like it's kind of a weird and like not many words come from it. But
Right.
actually
Yeah.
a lot of our words do. And in all languages, and the first words came from onomatopoeia. That's where the word,
Mhm.
is what it sounds like. So
Right.
there's a Pobblebonk frog in the book, for example, and
Yeah.
when you listen to what that frog says, it's Pobblebonk. It says Pobblebonk, Pobblebonk. I mean, it's
Aw.
amazing. But yeah, and then there's plunk and splash and all
Yeah.
those things, and then there's also words and how like nouns become adjectives and adjectives become verbs, and it goes around and around like trying to think of one, like beauty, beautiful, beauteous, this kind of thing. So those kind of words, and then where words come from in terms of the exchange of humans through
Mhm.
immigration, through war, through colonization, words like sushi and tortilla and beret and bungalow, like because
Yeah.
of this mix of cultures,
Gamut. Yeah.
and how words get shared that way. And so, like, English is said to be a pickpocket, like a lot of our words come to us whole from other languages. So now I'm getting to your question. My most surprising word in the book was sauna.
Sauna. Okay.
Sauna, our word sauna,
Yeah.
because it's the only word in English that we got from the Finnish, from
Oh,
Finnish. So that's weird because we've gotten a number of words from a number, several from
yeah.
the languages. So anyway, that one interests me. And I just sold the follow-up to this book
Oh, awesome.
uh, called Stars. Oh no, that one was called Star Sailor, the Story of Words.
Right.
So this one, if you think of a woman's name, Paige, Paige,
Mm-hmm.
it's Paige Turner, the
Yeah.
story of names.
Page
So
Turner. Oh, the story. Oh,
yeah,
that's
the story of
brilliant.
names. And
Uh,
that I was surprised by a lot in writing that book. I thought I knew what a person's name was, and I didn't at all. So that's been really interesting. That was a really interesting one. Yeah. Whereas
oh,
words, I was raised like we talked a lot about words and where words came. Like I remember my mother telling me breakfast came from breaking your fast, and just like just loving that. That really turned a key for me. And I try to express to kids in the book, once you're interested in words, I mean, like life is kind of set for you. Like words, you'll never be bored.
you'll never be bored. Yeah, and
Yeah.
understanding your own language and the history of it. Because yeah, break fast is such an old-fashioned thing. You sound like you're, sitting in a court there with, kings and queens. It has that
Yeah.
romance to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And
but
beautiful old words and this and explaining that like I can't it's 10 new English words are spoken every day.
every day people make up words.
Yeah, and that some will make it into the dictionary, some leave. Words die. Mailman died. They think that the word dirty is going to die, which I don't understand. Laptop is going to die. But I mean, just like I love that too with
Yeah.
language. Like, and I run into it as an editor and as an editor working for government, which my day job is. A lot of people want to cling on, and these are the rules, and it's just like no, like it's a bit of a river. It's
Yeah.
constantly renewing and replenishing and changing and evolving. Mind you, there are definitely words we don't want to let go of. I don't.
Yeah,
But
right. Probably some we could. Um,
yeah.
I know children are the ones who often make up words, right? They say that you're going to have
Yeah,
a Creole language, that it's the children who do it, right? If you
definitely.
have a whole bunch of children who all speak different languages in the playground, they'll come up with their own little language very quickly. That the adults are like, "What? What are they saying?" Which I think is fascinating, right? Language
Yes,
thrives with the children.
yes.
Yeah, so that's very interesting.
And that comes up with naming too. Like
Yeah.
kids will say, yellow hat man, like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't need
Yeah.
the,
They'll
and
put a
then
word
before you
together.
know it, the guy's last name is Yellow Hat, I don't know.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to try a little exercise with you. Okay.
Oop.
You want to try this one? So
Yeah.
the one word, okay, I'm going to name all the different styles of books you do.
Oh,
And if you can have one word that sort of speaks to how you feel about them, either how you feel about them, what it evokes, anything like that. A kind of, you know,
okay. One word.
one word.
Okay.
Maybe two, maybe two. What could be? Board book. I'll write this down.
Irreducible. So
Irreducible.
yeah, so a board book for people that listening, that's the very first earliest book for like 0 to not even 2 years old, but 0 to 2, let's say. And I did want to say edible because you got kids,
Uh,
they're gonna mouth it, they chew it. Those nice thick pages are meant to like injure and last. And I like the idea that kids are building them, using them as bridges to draw cars over, because I really like the introduction to books as not like precious objects and that
yeah,
they are really enfolded in your life. You can sit on them, you can, so anyway, so a board book, yeah, I would say irreducible because it's going to be read hundreds of times.
yeah,
And again, if you look at it and you think it's simple, but when you've only got 50 words, each one has to be well thought out and well placed.
yeah.
And it's not, yeah. I mean, there are bad, as with anything, there's a range, but I mean, in a good board book, every word counts, and you basically, yeah, hopefully you can't replace it with any other word.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Irreducible. I really like that word too. Has a
Mm.
nice sound to it. Graphic books.
So graphic novel is, I would say, filmic.
Filmic.
Immediately filmic. But
Okay.
you want to talk about Helm's Bird, so I'll talk more about that then, I think. Helm
Okay.
filmic. But
Okay.
filmic for sure, because, and
Mhm.
I mean, so a graphic novel, as everybody knows, is like a comic.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, it's just that idea of what do you call them, Claire? You're the filmmaker.
Storyboards?
Storyboards, but each
You know,
shot is like you've got 24 in a second.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, it's like looking at
Frame.
a
It's
spreading out a
a
film
frame.
and you're
Yes.
looking at it.
Frame.
It's just time. It's time in the gutters, as they say, between the panels.
Oh,
Time is in there,
okay.
and that's what's helping the kid move along. So
Oh,
yeah.
so cool. Okay. First chapter book.
Um,
Like the
well, Echo.
mm,
So Orca Publishers a series of chapter books,
mm,
which are early novels for readers 7 to 9 years old. So these are the books that are mostly text. They've moved on from picture books. So we skip picture book, but we've gone from, okay, so the board book, and then there's the picture book, which we all know from 3 to 8 ages. But then as kids read, and then they start to like take the training wheels off their bicycle and start to read these slim 6,000, 8,000 word novels that are mostly text, and they have some, thank God, right? They have an
mhm.
illustration
Yeah.
every two or three photos. Because again, it's like an image in
Yeah.
writing for children. It's like, okay, something to hang on to, something, yeah. They're often slice of life. They're
Mm,
not, because the kids still aren't quite ready. Like, I don't want to say that completely, but the abstraction isn't there and that sense of story isn't fully there. And I find that they're often, especially the ones I read, are very character centered, growth of character, and child centered, and it's the child who's growing and the same age as the reader kind of thing. So Echoes I like because they are seeing their world, they're seeing the world of another child who's just like them, but they're seeing how different that child's world is. So and they're often slice of life. But that echo, that sort of, it's the first time, yeah, it's their first opportunity to see themselves, I think, on a level that they can actually understand themselves as a person in their own life.
mm.
Something like, so that I love, I don't know how Orca came up with that word echoes, but I do think I think that's a good one for
Yeah, that
chapter.
is a good one, right? And
Whereas later, they can read about anybody, anywhere, in all sorts of
yeah,
weird circumstances, and they don't. And then there, what they have in common can be something like faith or something,
yeah,
like overcoming trouble. But chapter books are still very much in the home, at school, very relatable, but
yeah.
not the same. Not you, not a mirror.
That's interesting. Actually, I forgot to put picture books on this list, but I think I should. Do you have a?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, because picture book or board books and picture books are quite different. Um, okay, what about picture books? Have you done a number of those? What, is there a single
Well,
sort of
yeah,
word that comes to mind?
pardon me.
Is there a single word that comes to mind?
I'd say layered.
Layered.
Layered. Definitely layered. So picture book again, it's going to be read 300 times.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
need to, again, you have to have every word, and here at least you have a little more room than with a board book. You can start to expand a bit clearly. Like the narrative is a tiny bit. There is a narrative in a lot of board books. It's not much of a narrative, but there's a story. But if you're going to keep reading it, there's got to be mini narratives in between the lines or around. There's I often stitch in a mini narrative. The illustrator can add a mini narrative. Like the mouse climbing the wall behind the kid. That afterwards they might say, "Oh my gosh!" and that mouse is in this picture. That, and I would say even repeating, for some reason, my computer. I would say even using a word, the same word differently in a picture book in a couple of places, three places,
Right?
and kind of be a mini, it's not a narrative, but it's a mini thread. So there's a lot in between the lines of a picture book. It's got to keep giving and giving, giving. So like it's not just she went for supper, what is the story? I like to say, what's the aboutness of the story? Sure. She went to
Mhm.
her grandmother's cabin for the weekend and they saved a sea lion that was tangled up in blah blah blah. So we can read it at that level. It's this happened, the plot. But next time it's actually the arc of like comfort and joy and
Oh, okay,
homesickness.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Like, is it about homesick? Then there's an arc
Yeah.
about homesickness. There's an arc about fear and being saved. So you want to make sure there's a lot there. And even the grandma's cabin, there's an arc there about urban
Mhm.
rural. So you stitch all that in. So it's quite dense. And in
Yeah.
that way, I would say it's very layered. It's like a poem.
Like a
It's like a
poem.
poem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm taking. I can remind me not to take notes because I'm doing the interview. I'm not. So,
Aw,
oh,
that's
there's so
very
many cool
nice.
things to learn here. Uh, okay, what about CNF for children and teens? Creative nonfiction.
That's a tough one. I'll say road, like a highway.
Okay.
Um, because and I don't because it's quite, I mean, obviously it's quite solid working in nonfiction. But the road can go anywhere, let's say, but you're still staying within the margins of the subject.
Yeah.
That's not the best, but I mean, yeah, it's not the best. Let's just say you have your various views from that highway as you move along. I mean, you're going to stay pretty
Yeah.
straight with the subject, obviously,
Yeah.
but you can maybe turn here and have a view into history on that subject, or over here into, like, who knows, creativity, and that's
Mhm.
whatever the other things that might relate to that subject.
Yeah, because you do a lot of
Yeah.
sort of science books or, like the history of word stuff and things like that. I think that's really fun. Like how to make them so they're, fun, but still honoring that
Yeah.
this is, something solid to learn. I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
and again, and you still are trying to relate it to them.
oh,
Like I just finished one about lichens and moss and these ancient primitive plants that have been around for hundreds of millions of years. And like, look out your window,
yeah.
go and touch some moss.
Yeah, so that you see it with new eyes, I
Yeah.
suppose, right? Like we all see these
Yeah.
things and we can learn about them, but that's a little
Yeah.
different from seeing them
Yeah.
as a new thing, right? I think that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
thing we
Keeping
can
them
do.
in, making them as inside as possible for them.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool.
So I'm not very good at that one, the CNF one.
The
Then you
road,
can
I
just
think
tell
that's
it to
great. The
me.
road makes sense. It's a solid thing, right? Going somewhere
Yeah.
with a more purpose for driven, right? Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that one. Okay, how about high-low books for teens? Because you've done a couple of those as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a word for this one, haiku.
Haiku.
Um,
Okay.
so if anybody, I don't know if people know what a high-low novel is. So they're fascinating, and I think, anyway, I think I've done three, but one I didn't mean to, and they told me it was a high-low so later, so that was kind of funny. But anyway, what you're doing is you're writing in a language for at a reading. So you're helping struggling readers, they used to say, or
Mm.
later readings. I don't know what the term is now. But anyway, the idea is that the language itself is very, very readable. So you're a 12-year-old, but you're reading at a grade four level. Oh, wait, what? And I've got it mixed up a bit. Let's say you're 13, so you're in grade seven and you're reading a grade four level.
Yeah.
And the book is written in a grade four or even a three level. And now it's getting extreme. You can be 16 reading at a grade two level. And when we say grade two level, what we mean is the complexity of the sentences, very few clauses, complexity of tenses of verb. It's often in the present tense. The sentences are short. You also need to be, this actually does need to be a bit of excitement, or definitely some, like a bit of high stakes to keep people involved. But mostly for me, I'm very interested I love this idea, like a haiku, of being so limited in what you can use as diction. You can't even use multisyllabic words a lot of time. I mean, yes, two syllables, three syllables, but like, they're going to stop at that. So you really have these amazing parameters, very tight. And it's amazing what you can do in that. Because then again, I mean, it's like a picture book, except for picture books can be very, very, very extravagant with diction. So I don't want to,
I
that's a mistake.
see.
So yeah, picture
Yeah.
books don't have to be simple. But anyway, so you do have that idea of the layers and so much going on between
Mhm.
these words. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah,
I feel like they crank the manuscript through a little machine and it spits out, grade 4, grade 3, and
mm, yeah, I guess they do. I think it's a marvelous thing, though. We didn't really used to think about that. But this idea
yeah.
you want a higher concept. You don't want, to read about ducklings and, you know,
Yeah,
pond things. You want to read about things that affect your life, but in a language that you can understand. Yeah, that's
yeah.
cool.
That's exactly it. I mean, you're reading about drugs and alcohol just like you want to at like 16 years old, but
Yeah,
it's written in that. There's no shame attached to it either.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I think I have some of them, but I'm gonna keep on the children's thing. What about
Mhm.
verse novels in verse for teens or novels? Because
One word?
you've done, yeah. Which one was, sorry, Union was in verse, basically
Yeah.
poetry, but a novel. So it's sort of that bridging those two forms. But I'll let you tell us about that. What
So
would,
to talk, you want me to talk about union a little bit? Is that or like the idea of
yeah,
a
or
verse
maybe
novel?
what one word would
Oh,
suffice
the
to get
one
you,
word.
yeah, to approach
Well,
those things.
for me, it was privacy, but that's because of my book. That's because of union.
Oh,
For
okay.
me, the verse cat well, it's certainly an interiority. Like poetry does come from pretty deep
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
self, and it travels to pretty deep in the self, like to the other self, hopefully, if it's successful.
Mhm.
But I think it's an extremely intimate form of communication of poetry. And
Mhm.
in this case, so I would say intimacy, privacy, and in the case of union, yeah, which is about a boy who needed to heal and was feeling very isolated. It really came out. Mind you, anyway, yeah, I can talk about that later,
Yeah,
but yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, I'd say
Oh,
intimacy, privacy. But our mutual friend Sherry would probably have a completely different
oh,
take. She writes in verse often.
yes, that's what we're.
But I think that she says it's more related to kids and teens who keep journals,
Oh,
and
interesting.
it does often become lyrical for them, like keeping a journal. Like there's no line break. There's a kind
Um,
of a line break, I should say. Like they're not writing often to the end of the line. I don't know what that is. And teens are very drawn to writing songs. There's got to
yeah.
be something. Maybe kids are like informal, but not in a negative way, like in a
Mm,
more open and wild way. So maybe poetry fits that way too. Like the no line
yeah,
breaks. I mean, sorry,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like the no
yeah.
going to the margin and the back. Yeah,
Yeah, I
a
like that
little
idea. This
clear.
it feels like a journaling, right? When a teen reads this, it feels like something
Yeah.
that's very draws them in, very personal, right? In a way,
Yeah. And
versus
then there's rhythm and
story.
rhyme and that's
Yeah.
always a joy as a kind of music and especially teens I think love like music is a major part of their identity generally.
Um, okay, so your first chapter book, move on, Genius Jolene, that won
Hmm.
the BC Book Prize, basically. And there, it was about a trucker and his daughter, a daughter and her trucker father, I should say. And I just thought that it was such a unique set idea. And how
Hmm.
did you research it? Because we're on the road with them, we're learning all about what
Yeah.
it means to
Yeah.
live in a truck.
Yeah, and actually like that's a great question because and it was inspired I was at the Tsawwassen coming back waiting in the parking lot to get on the ferry, and there was a 18-wheeler in the couple lanes over at the front of the road. Anyway, and who jumped out of the front seat, the passenger seat, was a girl who was like 11 years old. It
Oh,
was summer,
yeah,
and I could tell she was wearing her dad's t-shirt as a kind of nightgown
yeah.
going nearly to her knees and a pair of runners. And I was like, that girl needs a book written about her. So that's the whole reason Genius Jolene was I wrote it. And it is definitely about her going on the road with her dad, which she does every year for a week. And I did do research. I was in visiting friends in Saskatchewan when I wrote it, and my good old friend Dale said, "Oh, I know a trucker.
Oh,
Let's
perfect.
go." He runs a trucking company, so let's go. So before I knew it, I was in the cab of a truck, and I spent like about at least 45 minutes in there and took
Yeah,
photos and
yeah.
sat and felt how it would have felt like and how it would have been for her,
Mhm.
and talked to the guy there and learned a lot about things. Like for example, she helps. I wrote a while ago, but she helps with things. He because he turns out that he took his kids on the road.
Oh, that is so
So
cool.
he had things. Oh yeah, they loved to do this. It was something about tightening the wheels or tightening the flaps over the wheels,
Yeah.
and a couple of those details that I was like, yes, please. And the fact that his side, the driver's side of the truck was like full of, it's like a cockpit, but the
Yeah.
passenger side is really boring. So like the
Yeah.
girl talks about that, and
Yeah.
then what you can see from up there. But you know what happened later in that day that was like it made it kind of horrifying and changed it. Was, and I think that there is an echo of this in the novel itself, actually, I would say, because there is something slightly horrifying, not this horrifying. But later that same day, we were in Saskatchewan, and it was the truck. It was the horrible accident where the trucker hit the hockey players in
Right.
the bus. So that actually, and I felt kind of like, yeah, well, anyway, we all have survivor's guilt, but you have like a
Yeah.
kind of a guilt attached. It just felt anyway. You all know the accident I'm talking
Yeah.
about. This
Mhm.
like all these hockey players died right there, and it was like very very close to where we'd been. Like I mean, within 100 kilometers. So yeah, it all felt a bit weird. But in the story, it's nowhere near. But there's other research I did in that story because she loves food.
Yeah.
And as they drive every year when they go on their trip, they decide to taste the same kind of food, like and
Yeah.
rate them, which I did on a kid's trip as a kid. But anyway, so on this one they chose an onion rings,
Yeah.
and then she comes up with her favorite recipe, and then I had to
Put the
I
recipe in
had
there, or
to
did
take
because
it back the rest, yeah, and I had to make it and make sure it worked and everything.
yeah. It's
That
so
was research.
yeah, that was research. That's great. It's fun to think that, everywhere you look around, you're always be on the lookout for stories. You see something like that,
Yeah.
gotta be a story there. One of my favorites was Scallywag and the Salish Sea. It's a pirate story. It was love a pirate story. It felt like this one was just like you're just having a lot more fun. Like you weren't trying to be
Yeah.
thinking about social issues or anything. Pirates, man, they're pirates, bad guys, but they're hilarious.
Yeah.
And this whole story there, and it's set on the Salish Sea, which I've never read a pirate story on the Salish Sea. They're always
Yeah.
in European seas. Was that like? Did you get any pushback from Orca, or did they just love that idea and they didn't really, because it's sort of grounding it in our own waters, which is great. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, like I was thinking like Nevers, which if we have time, I'll read a tiny bit from, but it is set in France in 1799, and I was a little concerned about proposing that one to Orca because they often are very relatable for kids and everything. They don't kind
Mhm.
of, but and here it was in France, and when they publish because they have such a huge audience in the States,
Right.
they use American spelling. So, yeah, and so often I'll write in locations, if I'm writing for them, I'll write in locations that are kind of ambiguously North American kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just won't locate them so strongly. As for Scallywag on the Salish Sea was published by Heritage House, and they are very committed, or there's a large part of their commitment is to writing books that are published in BC or by BC writers. And I don't know if that's part of their granting process or anything like that. Anyway, so it kind of like felt comfortable that way. Oh my gosh, though, I actually, when I was selling it, I wrote it for an Atlantic publisher.
Oh, okay.
And so then when they didn't want it, I kind of translated it into the
Yeah.
West Coast. But guess what?
What?
A colleague, I won't call her a friend, especially after this incident, she read it and then she immediately had to tell me like, hey, there's no Pollock on the West Coast. Like, what the hell?
Oh,
Like, so I have, and Pollock figures pretty principally in the book, like pretty centrally in the book. Like, there's a lot of
yeah.
Pollock. Anyway, so I was like, oh God. I remember spending quite a few hours going, please, there's got to be Pollock somewhere on the West Coast. But anyway, but yeah, so I made a mistake. So, but yes, and then the illustrator is from Mike Days is from Salt Spring. So he had like
Okay.
no problem capturing the West Coast
Yeah.
for
There it is
that
there
book.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a great question. Like, I don't know how that works, but those are some answers I have. I don't know.
It feels like
Okay.
there's a sequel to this one.
Well, that's very funny you should say
He
that.
doesn't have a find out who his parents are, right? He was found by the pirates, and he's an orphan, and he has they're horrible. I mean, it's great because it just feels like, as I said,
Well,
a little bit
yes. I
compelling
mean,
from some of the
the
other ones.
thing is, it was originally called The Boy Without a Name. So it's a boy
Oh,
who's all alone in the world, and he is looking for his name. He's looking for his name.
yeah.
But the idea was, I think he discovers his name in the first book, in this book, and the
Mhm.
idea was there were two follow-ups, where he finds his father in the next one, and then he
Yeah.
finds his mother in the third one. So
Okay.
there's a little trilogy, but Mike Days was not available to illustrate the
No.
other two. And so this poor boy is out wandering the world, like still looking for his parents. And
Oh, there
yeah, I
he
don't
is.
know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
yeah,
hopefully,
so yeah, you're
I'm
right.
very curious.
Definitely.
It left on a cliffhanger. That's
Yes, he needs to
hard.
do.
Carry on. Um, what other? I've got lots of. Oh, I think I'm gonna go to Helen's Birds here. Helen's Birds is a wordless book. what age group is it for? Is it
That's a
like,
good question.
because it's not like graphic novel. It's more,
Uh, yeah, they call it a graphic novel, but it's like, and then because you can't say graphic picture book because that makes it sound like it's like not for safe for work,
no, no,
or
you
not safe for the daycare. But
yeah,
yeah, and also the content is a tiny bit heavy. Like it goes, I would say it can actually work from 4 to 9, as high as 9, even though it is.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And it's just,
my sister loves it. She's 55. But anyway, so yeah.
it's really,
But yeah, so Helen's Birds is a wordless picture book
Mhm.
or graphic novel or whatever. And I think I'm just finished my fourth wordless book for kids. And the reason for wordless, it really did grab me for a period with children's books because they're so often illustrated. A lot of things just become redundant in to have in words. So, for example,
Right.
she was wearing a red hat, like the illustrator can
There it
show
is.
that, or she was
Yeah.
sad, the illustrator can show. She had two dogs, and whatever, the illustrator can show all this. So, like, it was just like whittling it down. Like, I don't have to write that. I don't have to write that. And so and there is the relationship between the illustration and the text. Sometimes it can echo it, sometimes it can like complement it and all that stuff. But it shouldn't an illustration should never just show what the words have said. Like that
No,
doesn't make
it's
any sense.
useless.
There's a
Yeah.
dynamism between them. Anyway, so and then Helensburgh, yeah, so in this was I think this is the first one I did without words. And I wrote so it's quite a dense wordless book in the sense that there's a lot of images in it.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening. And so it's 80 panels that I wrote. It
Okay.
described every panel. I did study film at a period of time, so I did have a little sense because it does feel very much like storyboarding for a film.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And and then they found an illustrator, the publisher that was Groundwood, and Sophie Casson gave her an entire year to doing the illustrations. And she kindly said to me once that writing is much more difficult than illustration, but that illustration takes a lot more time. So I don't know if I agree with her. Obviously, as a writer, I was like, oh my God, drawing is way more
Yeah,
difficult. But anyways,
I would think. Yeah. I guess it just depends.
yeah,
Oh,
and so
long
yeah, so
time.
and then throughout the period that she was working on it, they would share her thumbnails or her palette,
Mhm.
and is this the flow? Because for me, it's like, how the heck is she get? Are we going to get the pacing and the flow
Yeah,
right?
right?
But I had full faith in her.
Yeah.
And I never like she just did an incredible job. She really she fell in love with the manuscript, which is like your dream. I mean, I've had
Yeah.
situations where like, did the illustrator no, this rarely has happened, but maybe
Mhm.
once, but I was like, did the illustrator actually read the book or
Oh,
just the
gosh.
page, you know?
Yeah.
Like it was like so like
Yeah.
yeah, I felt like she was complete like I mean, she liked it like it's her book. I said to her, it's your book now, basically.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then when she said, "Really?" I said, "Well, maybe."
Not exactly.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
fun. The Secret Office, your first chapter of The Secret Office, I really love this book too. This was the most, quite recent, right? Your first.
Yeah.
And it was so like I just related to this so much because I'm always on a hunt for an office in my house. And my daughter gives me grief every time. She goes, "Oh God, now you got your office on the kitchen table. Now it's in the living room. Now it's here. How many offices do you need?" And every time I look around, it's like the shed. Maybe the shed would be good for an office. Down
Yeah,
in my
it
bedroom
was.
now. I was like, I need an office. So I really thought, oh no, for some reason I thought of Virginia Woolf, room of one's own, how we just want a room to ourselves to do that stuff. But it also
Yeah,
spoke to, you know, they live in a very tiny place because, who can afford it
yeah,
now? You're a family, you're a single mom with two kids. A
yeah.
4 bedroom
That's
place.
right.
She's in the
Yep,
living room, like sleeping in the living room while her kids take the bedroom.
yep.
And I thought that was a nice little detail that you didn't make a big point of. It was
No.
just a fact, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Thanks.
so was that inspired by anything like with your own?
Well, thanks so much. I love that observation. And actually,
Yeah.
often I'll have single parents and I never bother talking about the other parent or what happened or where they went. It's like it's the same thing with LGBTQ. Like anytime there's an LGBT character,
Yeah.
it doesn't always have to be a coming out story, right? It's just like, come on, like let's just.
Yeah.
So, the original title was Room of Mom's Own.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
so there you
kidding.
go.
That's hilarious.
But I mean, it was
Yeah.
lost on kids.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Maybe when they're older,
Yeah,
they'll read that and they'll be like, oh, I remember something about the secret office, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
So it's twin a set of twins living with their mom in an apartment, and she begins to work from home, which I do 4 days out of 5 weekdays. And I'm really aware that my work has invaded the house. You know, the voices of the people I work with, like kids have to like they're constantly coming home, and I'm like talking to other people that aren't here. So
Yeah.
there's this idea of kind of like they're like ghosts. They're like these weird people, and the poor kids in the book have to start to crawl around so they stay out of the camera. They have to be
Mhm.
quiet. They didn't used to have to be after school. They
Mhm.
used to be able to play and everything loudly and do Lego in the living room. Now they can't because the mom's working, so they have to go to their room. Anyway, it's like their lives are it's a bit
Yeah.
scrunchy. And it's really about like they're very resourceful and they discover by chance, an old unused coal room in the basement. I love like learned my dad's a geologist, so I got to talk to him about
Mhm.
coal and coal rooms. He also was kind of aware of coal rooms. So anyway, so that was fun to add into it. And the kids just have this resourceful, they figure out a way to pay the rent on this room because the
Yeah.
landlord's not gonna give them a deal. And so yeah, I was inspired by that. And yeah, they don't now they're free and their mom's free and that
Yeah.
all kind of works out. But yeah, it was a yeah, I think I came up with this. And of course I love them living in an apartment building. And I really wanted that one to have a traditional 50s children's book feel. I don't know if you ever read like Betsy books, I should say. Actually, that's earlier, like 30s, 40s New York. But I wanted it to have that kind of like everybody's in the apartment building together and
Yeah. I did
you
get
know
that
your
sense, absolutely.
neighbors
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
kind of something I wanted something a little I don't know traditional
Mhm.
feeling about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought
Yeah,
that was a really good one. I'm going to, what time are we at? Maybe, would you want to do a reading for us?
sure. I can read the beginning of Nevers.
Okay. Awesome.
So it's the prologue, so it's a little bombastic, but as prologues might be. But anyway, if you have any questions, um, okay, I'll have a drink of this. So this is this novel. Oh, about Secret Office.
Hmm.
I don't think she's here. So that was one time that the illustrator was like, not like we weren't aligned. And so she didn't seem to be aware of apartment living or of like, I mean, the family wasn't. So anyway, so basically it was this apartment with a single parent. I was a single parent for, well,
Yeah.
forever. I don't know, forever, 15, 20 years. Still am.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the apartment was decorated like it was a middle class house, but it was just in a small environment. And I was like, that's not quite hitting it. And then I got
Yeah.
cracked walls and like shutters falling off the windows. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, like no. So anyway, that was one that we had to go back and forth to sort of like understand. Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. I've had others where the illustrator just would not, like Genius Jolene,
Mm.
even though she was excellent. But children are in chapter books are often and picture books are often very lean. I don't know if you've ever
I
noticed.
have
It's just,
noticed. Yeah.
oh my God. So I had to fight. Can you give
Yeah.
her some heft? Like she's like
Yeah.
a nice, like,
Yeah.
yes, solid child. Anyway, so that was
Yeah.
fine. Okay. So
Okay.
this one is and so I mentioned that because I did not like this cover at first and now I'm just totally in love with it. And I don't know if you can see it, but I really fell in
Ah,
love with it.
I love
So
it.
it's yeah, I love how you can go in and you know how kids like wander. Anyway, so this is a novel set in 1799 Nevers and in France, because that's where I spend a fair bit of time in France. And I was homesick for France, so this was a good solution was to write this book. And I'm quite romantic about France, although that's fading, sadly. Because look, you live somewhere. What else was I going to say about Neville? Well, it's kind of it's kind of like a fairy. It got like some fairy tale-y stuff, slightly, I don't know. It's a bit sur but yeah, it's got some fairy tale vibes. Okay, prologue. Only a couple pages. Here follow the adventures of resourceful 14-year-old Odette and her beautiful but mortally clumsy mother, Anneline, on their arrival by cheese cart to the small city of Nevers, in a part of France where the fields are green and rolling, the houses are built stone upon stone, castles rise over the landscape, and rabbits raid gardens on moonlit nights. Radishes are especially sweet and soporific when the moon is full. Clover is too. I know these things because I know things that most mortals do not. I know the smell of clover when the moon glints like a silver coin tossed aloft by fortune, deciding whom to favor. I tell this story because Odette is too modest to speak of herself. She is having a well-deserved rest now, and when she opens her eyes again, she will be too busy to dwell on the past. After the marvels that have exhausted her, Odette is poised to enter her own life. Why is it that we want to know what others think and feel, to dip our buckets into their silence? Why do others' stories seem more colorful than our own? Perhaps each of us knows our own story too well. It is erased, as it were, as soon as we turn the page. I understand what it is to yield to silence, to have words clot in your throat, and to choke when you mean to speak. These days, though, words flow through me as easily as water released down riverbeds in spring. The snow has melted and the ice has thawed. I will do my best to share all that I have seen and heard. For a long time, the people of Never laughed at me. They threw rocks at me, dead fish, the spokes from a broken carriage wheel once. But late at night, when they were lonely and afraid, some of them confided in me. I will miss a few details, that is inevitable, but I'll embellish here and there to balance things out. Not to worry. The main facts of the story are sturdy, its bones, its timbers. Time to step into its chapters. Time to set sail for a corner of France in the very last year of the 18th century. There.
Yoo-hoo. I love that. Not bombastic. It's beautiful writing. I love that kind of writing. Just like,
Yeah.
yeah, the richness of the words and the mystery, the mortal. Okay, who?
Yes.
I'm very
I can't.
curious what or who this is. It's not mortal. Oh
There
my
you go.
gosh, what a great reading. Thank you.
I
Um,
would tell you, but it would kind of undo
don't tell me. Don't tell us. Don't tell us. Do we have
Uh,
any questions? I think we can just ask them. You know,
I
sometimes we.
have a few, I have a handful of questions that I'd like to follow up on, if that's okay. There's so many things, Sarah, that you've spoken about that have just been very inspiring and thought-provoking, and I really loved the talk about words. I really appreciated that. One phrase you said, why do we want to dip our buckets into their silence? So that was from the
Mhm.
prologue of Nevers. Love that. Just so I'm coming away with so much inspiration.
Well, thank you.
I had two questions. One is related to you said something about it was about Genius Jolene, and you said that girl needs a book written about her. And I
Mm.
was wondering how many of your books start out that way, or how often do you get inspiration from a particular person or a particular situation?
That's a great, thank you for asking that. I'm like going through all my little books. I guess, yeah, I think they all do some, start some are inspired by an image, but often by or a line or something, but often, yeah, they're by a scenario. Like my first book is inspired by my daughter was having trouble with my boyfriend and relating to him. And so, there's a little scenario and that just flourished. But um I would say my book Union. And I should say I have a couple books that are inspired by my boys who had one of my boys has struggled quite a lot with learning, and but yet I could see he that didn't say anything about his intelligence. So that really inspired. Like I really wanted to write about that, and that inability. I'm really interested, I guess, in communication, and that inability had to fit in and to be appreciated, and yet the tension between that or the dichotomy and with his abilities, actually his social abilities and all these other things he could do. So anyway, so yeah, it's a great question. I guess I would say every single one yeah, situation or somebody, they don't come out of nowhere. On the other hand, I guess Never is the one that I really did. It was like kind of a magical realism, or it was a bit of a leap for me. It was the setting. It was where it was the location I really wanted to be in. Tuck, I'm really close to Tuck, who is in Union. And so he's the one that was dealing with, he's a 14-year-old dealing with having abuse.
Mm.
and then he's unable to speak, so he's been quite muted. And that's written, the whole book is written in single syllable words until he begins to heal, and then the words become a little longer. But I don't know, he's close to my heart. He becomes a union organizer and starts to build up his confidence. Then he falls in love, which is always awesome for for healing and being heard. And and I'm not
Good.
sure. I mean, I know boys suffer, and I'm a feminist. But
Mhm.
and that is actually related to my feminism and being a mother of sons. So it was inspired by my sons. Not that it wasn't the same scenario, but several of my books have boys as the main character. Even though, again, I'm a feminist. I want to see girls in literature and everywhere. I also am really quite aware through having sons, through seeing my sons,
Too.
the inner life that hasn't been um, validated or nurtured in the same way. I would say, not to say girls again. Anyway,
It's all connected, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all part of the
it
same
is.
problem,
It is
really.
very connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's,
Um, Thank you. Thank you for that.
that is a
That
nice
answered
question.
just a quick follow-up on that one as just, maybe some advice for writers if how to pay attention to their own lives and maybe what to observe that could be a spark of inspiration or lead to a spark of inspiration. How, if you can reflect on your own way of observing and engaging with your own life as a form of creative fuel, anything you would want to say to the writers here?
Yeah, I do. I really appreciate that question too. When I was like 8, no, I must have been a little older, 12. Anyway, my mother did encourage me to keep a journal. So I always had a little UNICEF calendar and I would write, but it was like, French fries and ham for supper and went to so and so's birthday party. There's no details or anything in there. And then I got to be 11, 12, and was still keeping my journal, and then 13, and then it was always like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sad, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, or blah, 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 blah. And I did realize, I don't know why, but I had a moment where I just thought, I'm not gonna I'm not doing that anymore. I think I could see that it was just going to be basically page after page of the same thing and it wasn't getting me anyway. And I really did make a formal commitment that I was not going to do that and I was actually going to practice observing and write down what I was seeing, what I was learning, and getting a little bit deeper into them. Somehow I knew that. And to also practice metaphor for, I spent like for a year was just like, that's what I want to do. Or listening to people in conversations, finding little conversations, starting to write those down. I'm not very good at describing people, what they look like, so maybe I might spend a few days doing that. There was also, I did have a high school teacher who made us write an essay every single night, 300-word essay. So I think that was also a big help to make,
Yeah.
to look at the world outside you and try. It was hard.
That'll
He
develop a
could write
writing
about any,
practice.
we could write about anything. So we could write
Yeah.
about a radiator. We could write about, sore fingers. So I mean, that was pretty fantastic that he did that. I think
Mm,
so. Those things. So I guess, but it is a daily. It's pretty much daily for me.
Mm.
Sometimes I don't know why I'm writing them down. So sometimes, I mean, there's wasted pages or wasted scenes, and I don't like that feeling too much. But I actually think it is probably just part about. It's just keeping the muscles exercised, and I do think, yeah, I think it is about toning and keeping exercise that way. And reading is huge.
yeah, and reading. Yeah.
Reading is massive, and if I'm not reading enough, I find my writing level descends.
Well, your love of words really came through, that passionate love of words. And Frank earlier in the talk had a question um, about whether or not you've made up your own words in the books that you've worked on, or outside of them, I suppose.
That's a good question. I don't think I have ever made up words. I've made up names, of course, naming your characters and places. But no, and little slang things that a family might get into the habit of saying with each other. But no, I don't. Poetry, I write poetry, so sometimes you make up a word here and there. There's some, I mean, because I think the reader has a larger stretch of awareness for diction but I'm not like Dr. Seuss and making up hullabaloo, that stuff. That hasn't been my interest. Whereas I'm like, I love the fact that Shakespeare added 500 words to English, and
Hmm.
he and lots of writers who do have done Marianne Moore, I think, but who put together um, nouns, for example, they'll make a compound noun out of, I don't know, not lonely writer. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, sorry, but it's a good, nice question, Frank. But yeah, not hasn't been really my interest. Although I super admire it, and there is a children's picture book that is entirely Des East Nicht. I don't know if anybody Des East Oost or something. Anybody know it? It's
Mhm.
completely written in made up words, and the kid just has to. It's kind of like a wordless book in a sense, except the kid has to learn what these kind of creatures are saying to each other. It's a really great,
Oh,
fun
that sounds very
exercise.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I teach
Yeah.
children's writing, I read them a children's book that's in Chinese, which I don't understand. But they start to know the rhythm. They start to hear, oh, there's like a repetition of sounds, and they hear the rhythms or the rhyme or whatever's there. And anyway,
Yeah.
so
It's yeah. So I
yeah.
hear you like almost reminding us that language and storytelling is a way of pointing us back to the world, pointing us back to the observation of it, that through storytelling, wordless or with words,
Mm.
is reminding us to engage with the world in a way. That was one of my takeaways from today.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's kind of like I remember poets said if you're not naming your birds, you can't just write bird.
Right.
Like, tell me, is it a robin? Is it a whitehead? I think sometimes I can go a little too far, obviously, but I think that that is a really important that means you're actually paying attention, and that means you're not like I believe in. I'm pretty much into realism, like for the most part, and so I think that the rules change a little bit if you're writing science fiction,
Mm.
for example. But I think yeah, that means you're looking carefully. It's not just any bird. It's not just any blade of grass. You're not mixing up what country, what plant grows in what country or anything. I mean, it is about attention. That's about attention.
It's
So
about
I
attention.
think, yeah. And also I do think like diction, yeah, the choice of word. I mean, the words, every word means something different. And I'm living in France for like a lot these days, but or a fair bit, but look, speaking a lot of French is what I mean to
Mhm.
say. And you realize how many we don't have the same words for the same thing. Like they have no word for sibling, for example.
Oh.
Mhm.
You know, and it's just it's sometimes it's a bit annoying. They don't have a word for like gratitude.
Huh.
Mm.
And so you're like, then
Why is that? I was like,
you have to kind of dance around it, you
yeah.
know, like so. But then I mean, so this that's an odd. I don't like that chasm. And yet, on the other hand, you could look at it as actually filling out the map, like that woman who could see 100 million colors or something, and only we can usually only see a million. I don't know if you read
Yeah.
about her.
Mm.
So maybe it's just like a fuller landscape, but for me, I find like I'm falling in between a kind of chasm,
Right.
comfortable.
Interesting.
But
I'm wondering
anyways,
if I could, yeah, I would wonder if I can add one more question that's a bit more on the practical side. I really appreciated you told a couple stories about some of your books working with illustrators, Mike Days and Sara Cassidy, who you worked really well with. I want to just expand on that question. And for any of the writers in the group or anyone who's thinking about writing a picture book or a children's book, could you say a little bit about a writer's relationship with their publisher in this field of younger early chapter books? Well, you have a whole range, but I think some people here might be interested in what that looks like these days in terms of
yeah.
that writer publisher relationship and even writer illustrator relationship, whichever you would prefer to talk about.
Well, in terms of picture books, actually, it's always been advised, well, it's strongly advised that you do not go with your friend who's an illustrator and you're the writer and say, we've written this thing together here. Because I tried it because you want to throw caution to the wind once in a while. And then
Hmm.
what happened is what you don't want to happen, which is that they said, we like the text. Well, I was lucky, but my friend wasn't. We like the text, but we don't like the illustrations.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they also might say, like, you know what, we have, like, they have a host of illustrators that they already have, like, they want to be giving work to.
Mhm.
They know the world of illustration and what's selling now in books and the hot new illustrator, like, they know. And often, if you're too close to the illustrator, because I hardly ever meet I've met most of the books, I've never met the illustrator at all, or even communicated with them. So they keep you kind of apart, because the closer you are, I think it can kind of, I mean, there's something there that happens that's not quite good,
Hmm.
because you want the illustrator to have free reign, I guess, for interpretation. And then but on the so being a writer illustrator now, there is a demand for that because it's half the money. I don't know if it's exactly that,
Hmm.
but I mean they're
Hmm.
not paying two people, and of course then that's a different case of that intimacy that can be actually poisonous. In this case, it's a pretty great intimacy. I mean, if you're driven to be a writer or illustrator and you have some sense that you're not going to just, your illustrations aren't just going to show what you're writing, that sense of that relationship between illustration and text, then yeah, I mean, you've got a beautiful product, and those are, people are selling now more.
Oh,
The last time I tried to sell a wordless book, they're like, no way, so much work. And yeah, so it was awkward. Especially it was a graphic novel. There's a lot of pictures. It's just a lot. And they got to pay a lot, I guess, for the illustrator. So I guess yeah, you got to build your relationship with the publisher slowly. You've got to know what they're publishing and when they want to see things, and be willing to be edited, be persistent. I think the most important thing is to go into a children's library and read and read and read and read and read, and do not make any assumptions. I guess, I mean, I don't mean that you would, anybody here would, but that's what I seek when I edit or help people sometimes with their children's manuscripts. There's kind of an assumption of what a picture book sounds like and is like, but there's no actual body to it. And I think it's because we remember hearing the books, but we've kind of forgotten the content maybe or something. But people will come
Mhm.
up with the rhythms, and it kind of looks like, smells like, I don't know, a picture book,
Mhm.
but it's not. There's nothing there. It's a ghost, and that happens a fair bit. But and also there's always this issue of like, oh, kids can't mention drinking, and they can't mention. There's some misunderstandings or some assumptions. I think the best thing is to go and see what people are writing about grief. People are writing. There are picture books about residential schools. There are ways to approach topics, and yes, some are still somewhat off limits, and I've been pushing on a few of those and have been,
Mhm.
no, not ready for that. Or that's not the vibe for a picture book. Like, I want one where a girl and her friend feel deep amounts of shame. Anyway, that's not selling. So that's just to say,
Not yet.
not
not in
yet.
a picture book. They're like, oh, maybe. But so yeah, there's some things that won't. But I like so recommend going and reading. Oh, what's this? The moon's cheesy texture feels like white crumbly feta. A tingle in my cheeks makes me smile. Awesome. I can only see those.
Yeah. Thank
That's
you,
bright someday.
Christine.
Other blood red hiding. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that one.
Christine, thanks for sharing that. That's nice. Sorry if we missed you earlier or if it just felt better to put it in the chat. That's a lovely addition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have 10 participants right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any other? Do we have, what time are we at? We are at 11:19. But
Yeah. You're shy. We appreciate.
if you're open to one more question from the audience, if anyone has a
Yeah.
specific one, anybody? Any more questions?
Not at
Yeah,
all.
Yeah.
I think we're
Um,
good.
yeah. This has been fantastic, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Mm.
Thank
I've
you.
learned
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you.
I'm gonna rewatch, cringe at my own voice, and listen to
No.
you, and get some notes because I really found this really valuable. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's-
Thank
thank you,
you.
Sarah. Thank you all
Yeah.
for being here live and
yeah.
really appreciate the questions and just walking away with so much inspiration. So thank
Mhm.
you so much for participating in the Storycraft conversations with Claire and myself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.